So for this one, let me take a screenshot of this and then I'll just put it in the Jamboard notes too. So that one is kind of challenging, but not too challenging. I think probably the part that's hard about that is the fraction thing. So anytime you have a fraction when you're solving an equation, you can eliminate fractions. It's really kind of easy. Let's zoom in here. So I'm just going to write this off to the side. Well, there's two things. There's a negative too. So I'm going to say x squared, negative x squared over 4 plus 8 equals 0. Oh, there's a 0 in there. That's a triple whammy. So again, just like our other problems, we want x squared equals some stuff. Okay, we want to make it look like this. And then I'm going to take the square root of this, and I'm going to take the square root of this. And when I do that, I'm going to get x equals plus or minus the square root of some stuff. Okay, whatever that is. So when I look at this, you kind of follow order of operation, but backwards, right? So there's two things going on to the x squared, actually three. One, it's being multiplied by negative 1. 2, it's being divided by 4. 3, you're adding 8 to it. So what I'm saying is, mathematically over here on this side of the equal sign, there's a lot of stuff being done to the x squared. We're going to undo what's being done to it. Now, normally, if we follow order of operations, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, the last thing we do is add or subtract. But we want to go backwards when we undo stuff. So I'm going to focus on this plus 8. What's the inverse of adding 8? Subtracting 8. So we'll just subtract 8. Boom. 8 minus 8 is 0. 0 plus this stuff is just this stuff. And then 0 plus negative 8 or 0 minus 8 is just negative 8. Okay. So then I got a negative 1 here, right? And then I have a 4 here. Which one do I want to get rid of? The 4, right? That doesn't matter. But if I go to get rid of the 4, what is the 4 doing to the x squared right now? Dividing. So what's the opposite of dividing? Multiplying. So I'm going to multiply this by 4. And then I'm going to multiply this by 4. Whatever I do on one side of the equal sign, I do to the other. Now, we kind of gloss over this, but it's really 4 over 1 times this stuff. The 4's cancel. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1 times this stuff is just x squared, or negative x squared, equals negative 32. Right? Well, if this is negative 1 and I'm multiplying by negative 1, what's the inverse of multiplying by negative 1? Dividing by negative 1. And whatever I do on one side, I do to the other side. So here, a negative divided by a negative is just a positive. And same thing over here. When you divide a negative by a negative, it becomes a positive 32. So now I take the square root. Remember, when I take the square root, it's plus or minus. But this is the tough part. I'm going to get x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 32. So now to simplify that, I got to remember that 32 is the same as 16 times 2. In other words, I could say plus or minus the square root of 16 times the square root of 2. Okay. And what's the square root of 16? 4. So it's plus or minus 4 square root of 2. And that is it. So we'd put 4 square root of 2. Does that make sense? Okay. And anytime you have a fraction somewhere, leave it to the end, add and subtract whatever you can, move stuff away from the variable, and then multiplication and division are usually first, right? Well, if you think about it, we did everything backwards, right? So normally it would be parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division if we follow PEMDAS, but when we solved, we went backwards. We did adding and subtracting first, then we did multiplication or division, then we did exponents, right? Or square roots, okay?